All right, welcome to another episode of Warrior versus Zombie, and I am extremely excited today to introduce a new warrior guest to you, Melody Owen, and I will talk about her in just a second. But before I do, let me make sure you understand what you're getting into here with Warrior versus Zombie. So, success is a journey, it's not a destination. All as warriors, we all have a history of ups and downs, wins and losses that are part of making us who we are up to this point, and they provide a foundation for our path forward. We all battle our inner zombie as well as those zombies in our world. And in each episode, I interview warriors who are aspiring leaders from all walks of life: entrepreneurs, artists, authors, health practitioners, business owners, literally any inspired leader that has a story to tell. These warriors have a cause, unique value, and a vision that goes generations into the future. And today's guest is no exception. Melody Owen is an amazing warrior. Her warrior journey began in Ontario on a beef cattle farm. After university, she traveled to Japan and South America, living and working in Peru as a teacher and a member of Oxford University Press. After giving birth to her first child and terrorism in Peru, she moved back to Vancouver. After running a college English program, studying computer science, and working in the dot-com bubble, I remember that, in the early 2000s, she started her own business and never looked back. Today, Melody Ann Owen is the founder of Author Nation, a community where authors support authors. Go figure that. Where she has helped hundreds of authors bring their books into the world, getting them into the hands of readers. She works with professionals and entrepreneurs to create books and other content that helps spread the message of their business and helping their business grow and flourish. So, Melody Owen, welcome to Warrior versus Zombie. How's life in Vancouver today?
Well, it's gray. It often, we get sun in the summer and we get rain in the winter. That's kind of our thing. It's beautiful though. It's a beautiful foggy day out there, actually.
I love Vancouver. Yeah, we talked about that, I think, before. It was my second home for 14 months as I was doing a deal with a company called BC Hydro, which you probably know because they're a hydroelectric utility. And so, yeah, I loved Vancouver, loved the time there. Still love where I live better, but it's a great place to go. It's one of those people, and a lot of people misunderstand. You said it's rainy in the winter. Most people think, oh, Canada, but because of where it's located, I mean, if you're in the US and you've been to Seattle, it's not that much different. I mean, there are differences, but it's pretty similar. So yeah. And how about one of the things here in the Wild West of US, how are things going, in your world, with all the in Canada with the restrictions and stuff? Are you still locked in your office there and can't see anybody, or what's the world look like there? Just curious.
So we were fairly open, but with Omicron, we did have a shutdown, and we are still. We're not back fully open. We do have vaccine cards. So if you want to go into a restaurant, you show your vaccine card. And so if you're vaccinated, you have more access. And if you are not vaccinated, you have less access. That's kind of where we're at right now.
Fascinating. Yeah, we could have a whole show on that. That's I don't get it, but again, one of the things we may or may not have talked about is I run a wellness, or I was part of a wellness network and stuff. So I get a lot of input from a lot of practitioners from all different angles, and it's kind of fascinating. Those discussions can go on for hours. Well, let's do this. I want to really get in quickly here into your story and hear kind of how you got started. It's a fascinating story, from being on a beef cattle farm to now helping authors help authors, and that journey, it sounds like a pretty fascinating journey. So I'd like to hear a little bit about hear your story, and then we'll take a break after that. So let's do this. Let's take a quick break. We'll hear a little bit of It's Not the Getting There with Ricky Jean Wright for our audio audience. And we'll be right back with Melody Owen and Warrior versus Zombie. All right. Well, we're back, and I know there's a short check-in, Melody, and we could talk a lot about Vancouver because I love it so much. But let's get into your story. So tell me about how you got from where you started to where you are today.
Well, if we're talking about zombies, I guess my first zombie was my father, or probably my whole family, really. Zombies kind of bite zombies, make more zombies, right? And so I kind of come from a zombie kind of family, to be honest. My father was he was a damaged man. He was a broken man, and he sometimes broken people do their best to break everyone else. And so that was kind of my childhood on the beef cattle farm. I eventually walked away. I have no contact with my father. I haven't had for decades because he's just he can't be anything but a zombie, right? And I don't want to be a zombie. I want to be a warrior, and he didn't want to come with me, so I had to leave him behind, and that's very sad. But he's gotten himself into a lot of trouble, including jail. So we're not going to get into those details. But he was my first zombie, and I as a budding warrior, I didn't believe in myself. A good warrior has confidence and has like a warrior story. And I didn't have any of that. I had this broken zombie story to work with. And I think what really helped is as I was going through life, I would get into, relationships with other people, and I didn't realize that they were also zombies because I was so accustomed to zombies. Zombie was familiar, right? And so very slowly I started recognizing zombie behaviors and zombie attitudes. And, slowly I built up, the warrior, right? And I started recognizing other warriors. So, I walked away from my family. I went to university, and then I wanted so far away from my old life that after university, I got on a plane and I landed in Tokyo. That's how much I wanted to get away. And that's why I went to Japan and I started teaching in Japan. And from Japan, I decided to go to South America because I'm an adventurer. I'm a warrior adventurer. So I went and lived in Peru, and I taught at a university there. I'm not a PhD. I was an instructor, not a professor. And then Oxford University Press found out that I was one of the only English-speaking people in Peru with a work visa. They snapped me up, and I started traveling all over South America, in Chile and Bolivia and Ecuador, and speaking and working with schools and helping schools bring English classes to their schools. Because in South America, especially at that time, people believed that learning English was an out to poverty, was an out to their situation. And so it was something that every school, whether they were the wealthiest school or it was a school in a shanty town. So I used to go to the shanty towns and work with the teachers and help them, bring language, because that's whether it's true or not, whether everyone in the world should speak English or not. I'm not going to give an opinion on that. But there's that belief, right? And so that's what I did. And in Peru, there's terrorism. And I'm not going to call the terrorists zombies because I think that there was a lot of oppression in Peru. So I think there were zombies on both sides, to be honest with you. And there were good people. Peru is full of wonderful, good people. Like most of the people in Peru are warriors beyond what we could believe because of the situation they've grown up in, the situation they live in. And I have to tell you, I learned a lot of warrior skills from them. That community, that working together, it was a brilliant experience for me. I always say that I went to university and then I traveled to get my master's. And that's how I felt about it. Came back to Canada. I was in a much better place. And I started thinking about my story. And, I still had this, I was a bad kid or I was this. And so I actually rewrote my story, literally rewrote my story, making me the hero. So when I was a teenager and I was acting out, I wasn't a bad kid. I was a lost kid asking for help. And that's a whole new way to look at myself. And so I rewrote the story. And then I started helping other people rewrite their stories. You know, when you were told you were this, you were that, you were the other, maybe you weren't. Maybe those were zombies trying to make you a zombie. And maybe we can find the warrior in you and rewrite the story from that warrior perspective to empower you. And if you wish to share it out to others, to empower others with it. And so that's how I came to do what I do now, is helping people with their messaging, helping people with their stories to self-empower and to empower others.
Well, there's so much brilliance in everything you said in your story. I just can't even, first of all, as a dad with four daughters and 5 children, it hurts my heart to, of what the impact could be if I didn't do what I was supposed to do as a dad. So the thing that I love about your story is that that could have been an excuse, but instead you embraced it as a reason to break out of that and embrace your zombie and embrace that and recognize that that wasn't what it was about, and say that's something to defeat and move forward. And so many people could learn from that, because you know, it is a journey, and you powered through that. I love your getting outside your comfort zone, moving out of home, going to Japan, then going to South America. And you're right, by the way, a warrior is not defined by their environment. So I'm certain that in Peru and other parts of South America, you experienced warriors every day. I believe we're all have that warrior in us. It's just that we also have that we're infected, as I say, with the zombie virus. So there's this 95% of the thoughts we have today are the same thoughts we had yesterday. And so overcoming that with the 5% that's in our frontal lobe, that we're trying to use that to design our destiny rather than let our history become our destiny, is such a powerful thing. Well, I clearly can see that you've rewritten your story. And I'm really, excited that you're telling it for our audience. But let's do this. Let's take a quick break, and we'll hear a little more of Ricky Jean Wright. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about the things you're doing today, why you're doing them, the value you provide, and if anything were possible, what kind of impact you would have. I've heard a little bit of that in your story, but I want to get focused on that in this next segment. So we'll be right back with Melody Owen and Warrior versus Zombie after hearing a little of It's Not the Getting There. All right, we are back. And Melody, that's an incredible story. There's still so many nuggets that we didn't pick out and show everybody as they're listening to this. So, but now, as I said before the break, I want to hear about why you're doing what you're doing today, the unique value you see yourself providing, and if anything were possible, what kind of impact would you have?
Yeah, so I guess the story I tell myself every day when I get up is that I'm a community builder, and that I am a content creator, and I'm a storyteller, and I help other people tell their stories. I help other people deliver their messages in ways that they will be heard, in ways that will connect other people to them, that they will be able to build relationships and communities as well. I think that's probably one of my greatest impacts that I want to have, is to help people connect with themselves through their own story, to empower themselves and to take that story and empower others with it through their business. And how, because essentially we are who we are and we do what we do, usually, especially entrepreneurs, because of who we believe we are from where we came from. And so I want to take that and use it to empower each and every person I come across, whether it's through writing a book. I have a community called Author Nation. So whether it's through that or whether it's through working with me on content, that's what I want to do. So that's my impact. You asked me about my greatest value. I think there's value in helping people understand that they are the sum of everything they do. They are not one moment in their life. A lot of times people come to me with a story that's this one moment in their life. It's like they have one layer of story, and they're stuck in this one layer of story. And they forget that they're not one layer, they're multi-layered, and there are many stories. And if you've done something in life that you are ashamed of, or you believe makes you a bad person, remember you've also done a lot of things that make you a good person, which should bring you pride. And so I think that's one value I bring to people. Even entrepreneurs who come to me and say, I have this message and I really want it out, and this is how I help people. I love helping them with that. And I love uncovering if there's anything else going on that we can boost that story even more, because a lot of the times, and this is going to sound funny, but there's a gift that lives in the shame. And shame is not something that we should hold on to, but we should maybe find the gift that lives there. I was very ashamed of my father. I was very ashamed. My father is a criminal. That, for a long time, that brought me a lot of shame, but there's a gift in that. And the gift is that I can tell people that it's okay if one of your parents is an awful human being. It's not who you are. It doesn't create who you are. And so I've used that gift. And so I love helping people with that. I hope I bring value in that, and that then leads to impact.
Wow. We're so aligned on so many levels, and it's really just so fascinating to listen to you. And that's I run my life by divine appointment, even with entertaining guests in this podcast. And yeah, there's so many things. You even said kind of what I said in the introduction about it's a journey of ups and downs, wins and losses. That's what it is. It makes us who we are. And you even said that in your own words, which is extremely powerful. And the other one is, I often say that he who asks the best questions wins when it comes to value. And you mentioned, the fact that unearthing or uncovering the other layers, the multiple dimensions of the story that exists in all of us. Because you're right, the trauma, the shame, the blame, the excuse that we hang on to often those are all can be zombies. Those are all part of the infection. Those things actually can hold us back if we choose to focus on those. They make us feel in ways that don't empower us or move us forward or enable. And the thing is, if they're not moving us forward, as you point out with your vision and your impact, is our ability to improve the lives of others is very difficult. I mean, if we're empty, it's kind of hard to give that. So what I heard, and you didn't say it quite this way, but the vehicle of helping somebody tell their story, write a book, do whatever, is just a means by which you unearth the stories that really people don't tell themselves all the time, and complete that story in a way that probably serves them and hopefully serves their audience. kind of what I do with why I do this podcast, is because I'm not doing it to monetize it. I'm doing it to serve people like you, serve the warriors that are out there trying to make a difference and maybe change the world one dream at a time. So I love the focus. I love the vision of having an impact and helping people tell their stories. And, you're younger than I am. You have less journey than I do, but I can very well see the power in what you're doing and your vision. So I love that. Well, let's do this. We're going to take another quick break, and we're coming into what I call the land the plane segment, which when we come back, I want to hear if we take away 1, 2, or 3 things from this podcast, from your story, from the things you're doing today or whatever, what would you want us to take away? And then the last thing I'll do is make sure we know how to stay in touch with you since you're in Vancouver. I know there's ways either on Be Connected or others that we can stay in touch. So let's take another quick break. We'll hear another segment of It's Not the Getting There, our theme song from Ricky Jean Wright. And we'll be right back with Melody Owen and Warrior versus Zombie. All right. Well, Melody, I got to tell you, regardless of anything, you've made an impact on me. Hearing your story, again, from many aspects of my own life, I appreciate you sharing, being candid, embracing your zombies, embracing your history and your story. And now what you're trying to do is brilliant. So as I said before, if we take away anything, so many nuggets here, if we take away anything, what would you want us to take away from this podcast?
I think I have a couple of things. I did say at one point, your life is the sum of all of your decisions. It's not one decision. And sometimes we get stuck in a decision we feel was negative and negatively impacted ourselves or others, and we can get stuck there. So I'm going to say that if that happens to you, look through your life and find a positive thing you've done and ask yourself, how can I do more of that? Instead of getting stuck in, here I am, I'm stuck. I said that thing to my best friend and she's probably never going to speak to me again. Think about, when have I said something really positive to my best friend? When have I helped her? When have I given her good advice? And how can I do more of that? So yeah, just help you get unstuck. Something else I'm going to say, and something I do in my life that relates to all of this, is play with the edges. When you have a fear, right? And people say, oh, you do so much. And it's like, oh, there are days I wake up terrified, right? Like I'm putting myself out there, and growing up was a really scary ordeal. And so how did I get out of it? I played with the edges, because sometimes I can't take that full leap because it is just too much. But sometimes I can just play with the edges. I have a little story for you around that. I love to hike. Vancouver, we have mountains everywhere, and they extend and extend and extend. And in the summers, I love to get lost in them and I go hiking. I'm afraid of heights. And so sometimes I'm out there and I want to do a hike, but there are some ledges. And so I know that if I push myself too far, too fast on heights, then I will freeze, right? That's what we do. So what I often do is I'll do ledges and I'll do heights, but to the point where I'm scared, but I can still take baby steps across it and get to the other end so that I can see the lake or the mountain or the view that I'm after. And I think that really applies to life. When you're terrified, figure out like what baby steps can I take while I'm terrified, so that one day I can actually get to that beautiful place I want to be. So play with the edges, right? Play with the edges.
Wow. Okay. So, it's the way you said that, extremely powerful. And one is, as you said before, I have a process that I do with clients that totally aligns with what you're saying. It's the year in review. And basically I go back and say, I don't want to talk about the things you didn't do before to make our vision or plan for 2022. I want to talk about all of the wins that you had in 2021 first, because if you build upon that foundation, it will enable you to do the second thing that you just described, which is get out of your comfort zone and realize that there were successes, realize that it wasn't just about the things, because we do embed or embolden those things or put those in our brain that are the negative things. We don't have to, as type A's, we always can focus on what we didn't get done, right? And that's because I'm a type A. Or, even, protecting ourselves from future failures. It's easy to, again, to focus on, for that zombie brain to focus on the failures. But if you stop, and I have people write 100 wins, and you can find 100 wins if you look at your entire life over the course of a year. There's no doubt. It's hard to do because we don't tend to encourage to think that way. So that's a beautiful thing. And then the second thing is there's no growth, no progress that occurs within your comfort zone. So playing with the edges, as you say, and getting outside that. I mean, you did that in spades in your story. Great lesson. You jumped out of an area where you weren't comfortable. Maybe it was the good news there is maybe it was so uncomfortable and so unpleasant as you bailed out of there, for whatever reason, that it prompted you to do that. That turns out that was a blessing, right? Rather than a curse, because it got you to do things that maybe you wouldn't have done otherwise. So that's beautiful. So as I said, how do we, Melody, you're brilliant. I'm glad that we were introduced. I know you're in the Be Connected platform, but how do we stay in touch? How can we reach you there in Vancouver, or how can we connect with you after listening to this podcast?
You can connect with me directly at melody@authornationtube.com. Authornationtube.com is the Author Nation platform where I help people write books, tell stories. So if that's something you want to do, just go check out the website as well. And you can email me at melody, that's just like the word melody, at authornationtube, as in TVs have tubes, TUBE.com.
Excellent. That should be easy enough, and we can go back and find that if we have to. But yeah, it's great. And Melody, I thank you. Thank you for sharing your story with us. I know you've made an impact on me, and the audience, I'm sure, will benefit from this as well. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, David. I've loved being here.
Yeah, and I can't wait to. I think that I can see we'll have some more conversations going down the road. I know you've already served my Richardson Plano Networkers community and helped us with a workshop on that, and I really appreciate that. So, well, for those listening to this podcast, we've come to a close here with another episode. We'll hear a final segment of Ricky Jean Wright and the outro, if you will, of It's Not the Getting There, and we'll be back next Thursday, 11 Central, for another episode of Warrior versus Zombie.